So there's a cognitive dissonance to the group, but I'm doing the opposite. I'm being playful, fun, maybe even childlike, not adult-like, but I'm using highly aggressive words. Precise, harsh, triggering, surprising. Borderlines will do the opposite. They'll have soft, flowery, sugary, cheerleading bullshit with harsh judgment, with all this angle of like, you guys aren't perfect enough. They have all the emotional tone of aggression, but the words are all sugary and fluff. Okay, how many people know what cognitive dissonance is? Who wants to define it or help? Anybody?
Well, when you feel two opposite things at the same time.
Opposite things. That's good. And why is that?
It's more of a mental thing than an emotional. Although it's an emotional reaction, but it's to two conflicting thoughts. So two conflicting beliefs. So cognitive dissonance comes in when there are two conflicting beliefs. You got to pick one.
Well, do you have to pick one?
Yeah, you don't have to. You can be in cognitive dissonance. You could be haywire in your head.
Yeah,
what if you have time? What if you have time to make sense of the oppositions that aren't opposite? It's your need to fix it fast that forces you to choose one or the other.
Yeah, and you do, and sometimes you're wrong.
Well, what if it's a mindfuck? Like last week.
What do they call that? Call that deep when you challenge your distortions?
Cognitive behavior therapy. Or this is the Scout's way of challenging assumptions.
How do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that? Who told you that? Who told you that? Who told what?
You give your time to question what you heard. If you assume the two options that the abuser gives you as sincere, then you have cognitive dissonance. We read someone's YouTube comment. We're assuming that all these things are sincere words, but they're distortions, they're exaggerations that don't match our experience. We give them the benefit of the doubt that causes cognitive dissonance, so we're going to argue with their view because it doesn't match our view. Those are the two different belief systems. Here,
cognitive dissonance essentially means the bad feeling you get when your map of reality doesn't match the reality that you're faced with. You can't live with that level of cognitive dissonance for long.
Times have changed over the last couple hundred years. We were a culture at one point that most people, when they're farming or they have a ranch, shared a common knowledge with their neighbor. Then as technologies advanced, you started getting more and more specialized knowledge. So today we exist in a society where there are experts. And how you know they're an expert is because they have a certificate that says.
So that's one of the hacks they do. On YouTube, they play the expert role, then pick you apart, or pick something apart. And we defer the expertise. The narcissist knows how to talk confident. They know how to monologue. They know how to talk where you can't interrupt them, which is the critique of Grandin's video, that I interrupted everybody. And when I interrupt everybody, I don't allow people to do this.
I'm monologuing! I'm monologuing! I'm monologuing! I'm monologuing! I'm monologuing! You can't interrupt me, you just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't interrupt me, you just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't.
Do you know somebody that hijacks your attention and say, you have to let me
You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent.
That's the YouTube comment section. People just monologue, emotionally vent, dump on anybody, anything, and they want a reaction. Makes them feel significant. So, they take the expert hat. That's the moral high ground. That's one of the tactics.
Start to gain more and more specialized knowledge. So today we exist in a society where there are experts. And how you know they're an expert is because they have a certificate that says that they're an expert or an occupation. But it's fairly easy to convince somebody that you're an expert. And that's kind of where confidence comes in.
So they fake confidence that creates the illusion of expertise. They talk like an expert. They critique you like an expert. They create the feeling of expertise. And you defer because you're a good slave. And you don't recognize this.
There is no sincere communication with the insincere. There is no sincere communication with the insincere.
So they hack moral high ground. And when they hack moral high ground, they critique you, create cognitive dissonance, your view of you, your map of reality, versus their insincere personal attack, straw man, distortion of what they see based on their fucked up delusions. So, confidence game.
Interesting because it uses something that seems very simple. It's 3 cups. I want to turn 2 of them face down. I want you to try to turn over 2 at a time. So watch me. And I'm going to try to get all 3 of the cups just to turn face up. So here's 1, 2, 3. Now that looks pretty easy.
So he demonstrates what he wants the other person to do. And then watch the other person fail. Because there's a trick. There's an unexplained setup. There's assumptions in the argument that messes with things.
Doesn't it? Give it a shot. You have to turn over 2 at a time.
So the setup looks easy. Copy what I did. Now go do it. Watch.
There's 3 turns. Go ahead. That's 1.
I can't do it. I'm already off, right?
Con is short for confidence. Can I make you feel overly confident? And there's different ways of luring people into a confidence game. Some of it's simply asking them a question and making them feel like they have a safe knowledge of it until they actually get their feet in the water and realize it's deeper than they thought.
So that's a good setup. You get someone overconfident, get them to step out, overreact. Then when you overreact, then you know you've been tricked, but now you already stepped out. That's where in Neocon, I'm saying I'm responding to the comments. I'm not doing it on YouTube yet, because I'm not confident enough. I'm letting Juliana do it, because she doesn't care, so she's attacking people. I don't know if it's good or bad. I respond on the forums, so I can discharge the wounds for me, and then I can make sense of why they triggered me. Because why they triggered me is my wound, not what they said. What they said triggers something personal in me, which I can fix. I can address my wounds. If I jump in there and want to make them hurt, I can't suffocate them. I can't touch them. It's a lose battle. I have to wait until they show a vulnerability, or I ridicule them on video, so I can get back a different way. But if I jump in the comment section after I'm triggered, I lose. So, Crystal, you're waving.
Yeah, I have a question about that, Deep. Like, what you're describing sounds amazing, but like, it feels very evolved. How
Yes.
the heck did you get there? Like how?
It's only Act 1, not an Act 3.
Oh, right. Dang these teasers.
Ask after Act 2. Right now I'm still describing the problem and giving teasers.
Gah! You got me. I'm in.
See, patience is part of how we get there. The hook that they're doing is they trigger cognitive dissonance, and they make you urgent. They create the illusion of I have to respond now. If you respond without enough information, you lose. You have to be patient, or you counter their speed. You give them a hook to slow them down, and you have time to catch up. But he set up this person, and he'll explain what the hook is, I think.
1, 2, 3. Did you notice that it's on my left? Maybe you should try it on your left instead. Go ahead.
This is another trick. So he's saying, maybe it's the wrong side. Try a different side. This is just messing with her.
Give it a shot. 1, 2.
I got it all upside down, okay?
Still wrong.
A lot of times, because we have access to the internet or this information that we think it's at our fingertips, we personally think that we have an overconfidence in what we know and what we don't know. And that's something that
That's the problem of YouTube. That's what we were talking about earlier, Debbie. That you can watch all these videos creates the illusion of confidence and skill, but actually sets you up to fuck up more because you have the mental map, but you don't have the life skill. You don't know how to read the danger. You don't know how to respond to cognitive dissonance.
we have an overconfidence in what we know and what we don't know. And that's something that can be exploited.
Do you want me to show you how it works?
Yeah.
There's actually a trick.
Okay.
So here's a simple trick that she didn't notice.
And it's something very small. A lot of times people they're overconfident and they think that what they did is a little bit different. Here's what I was doing. If the middle cup tells you that they're all going to be face up, so when I turn them over as 1, 2, 3. But when I handed it to you, I turned the middle one face down.
That's the difference.
So there's no way you could do it. So I cheated a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he presented the solution with the middle cup up.
A lot of times people they're overconfident and they think that what
So
they
right
did
here-
is a little bit different. Here's what I was doing. If the middle cup
That's what he was doing. But then when he gave it to her to do it, he made the middle cup down.
tells you that they're all going to be face up. So when I turn them over as 1, 2, 3. But when I handed it to you, I turned the middle one face.
That's the trick. Because she was assuming sincere communication. Here,
There is no sincere communication
smashed
with
by
the
granite.
insincere. There is no sincere communication with the insincere. There is no sincere communication with the insincere.
so today's lesson is trying to teach you to recognize cognitive dissonance. The feeling of that, get used to that, because that'll be a signal to you that
There is no sincere communication with the insincere. There is no sincere communication with the insincere.
so when you feel cognitive dissonance, this
Cognitive dissonance essentially means the bad feeling you get when your map of reality doesn't match the reality that you're faced with. You can't live with that level of cognitive dissonance for long.
you can. I'm saying you can build the muscle of cognitive dissonance. You have to get used to the feeling of having two opposite beliefs, of having your view of yourself and somebody else's distortion, and holding those two at the same time, even when the other person is hating you, distorting you, pulling you into a shame spiral, trying to get a reaction out of you. That's an insincere attempt. You want to punch them.
There is no sincere communication with the insincere. There is no sincere communication with the insincere.
But the answer is to slow down. Get used to cognitive dissonance. Brenda.
Is the main thread then that you're unable or unwilling to understand that other perspectives, and that leads you into cognitive dissonance? So I mean, as part of it, everyone should be nice to me, I'm so nice, or I'm just using an example. It's that you lack the ability to think that like bad things can happen to you or something like that.
Well, everybody should be nice to you. That's your social belonging. So on YouTube and social media, they attack your social belonging. They say you should be exiled. That's why you're triggered, because you feel confident in your social situation. And then these distorted reflections from them specifically key on your belonging, your shame, your social status.
Right. So it's kind of like your inability to understand that other people can have a perspective that's directly opposite your perspective, even about yourself.
No, you're not catching this.
There is no sincere communication with the insincere. There is no sincere communication.
They're messing with you.
Insincere.
Why are they messing with you? Because they want a reaction. Or is it a reaction?
But to use Brenda's example, isn't it that if we want to stick with the words that she's saying, perspective, isn't it that our perspective is that we presume sincerity? We automatically start from the point where we presume that they are saying something.
But this is the motivation.
Just like we might, yeah.
It'll make your mind turn. It'll make your head spin. But with the narcissist, we're sitting there like in our heads like, yes, how powerful am I? It'll make your mind turn. It'll make your head spin. But with the narcissist, we're sitting there like in our heads like, yes, how powerful am I? It'll make your mind.
That's what they're feeding off of.
They get you to change your mind. It's like influencing your thoughts.
They want to trigger you because it makes them feel significant. What's their weakness? They feel insignificant. That's why they're trying to get you to react, because they're losers. They're little trolls hiding somewhere, trying to get a reaction from some random person online. If they can get like a big influencer, Richard Vaninger reply back, they feel powerful because they're a little ant that's able to trigger somebody.
Right, so
I follow that. I also feel like the last time we talked about cognitive dissonance, I'm just gonna. It's when we've all been there. We're like, how is it? How could they treat me like this? Or how could you do this to me? Or how could this have happened? Because you never thought that person could treat you that way or do it. Like I remember having the conversation with my boss, being like, how could you do this to me? Right? Like I took it so personally.
That's your map of them. Yeah. You thought they were genuine. You thought they wouldn't get triggered over something. When they got triggered, they went postal, they went primal, full attack on you. You couldn't make sense of this new person coming out, causing cognitive dissonance in you.
In me, and that's where it was like this. It's like you feel like your floor is being pulled out from under you. There's no floor anymore.
That's perfect. You can pull their floor out too. So when someone cognitive dissonances you, you do it back to them. Maybe we'll get to it, Act 3, or in 2 weeks.
Isn't that like what we did a while ago about being the opposite of the narc snapshot of you?
Yes. So you do the opposite of their snapshot because they're trying to condition you. They're criticizing you to get you to get in line. But if you know they're insincere,
there is no sincere communication with the insincere.
Sense this.
There is no sincere communication.
You start defying their criticisms through your behavior. And if you're good, you say you're following their behavior, but you do your actions defy them. That's what I do in this group. So I act calm, relaxed, but I'm highly aggressive and triggering with my words. So there's a cognitive dissonance to the group, but I'm doing the opposite. I'm being playful, fun, maybe even childlike, not adult-like, but I'm using highly aggressive words. Precise, harsh, triggering, surprising, which really pisses off borderlines who want comforting, soothing, stretched out language that has no harsh edges. But while borderlines will do the opposite, they'll have soft, flowery, sugary, cheerleading bullshit with harsh judgment, with all this angle of like, you guys aren't perfect enough. They have all the emotional tone of aggression, but the words are all sugary and fluff. So here's the roadmap of how they play you and how you can play them. This could be triggering. Are people ready? Do we need to soothe people?
We as a society need more self-made victims.
And you can be more of a victim than you ever thought possible. You just have to believe. We're here to help. Just listen. To victimize yourself, find someone else to blame for how you make yourself feel.
Tell them why it's their fault. Everything about you and your life is their fault, and they need to know that.
Your feelings are their fault because they're yours.
They might have trouble understanding why it's their fault. Typical abuser.
That's of course because they don't care about you.
If they cared, they would already know what they did to you in your mind. How could they? But because they probably won't understand, explain it to them in simple terms by getting rageful.
The angrier you get and the louder you scream, the more wrong they are.
That way they'll understand that the scope of pain you're causing yourself is their fault.
The more pain you have, the more significant you feel.
Now's the time to virtue signal.
Do this by accusing them of being something horrible.
This will set up a
That's what they're doing on YouTube. Virtue signaling.
I think
the more you accuse somebody else.
I think my ex-wife subscribed to this
this roadmap.
This series. I think she got this training.
But
it's easy. Yeah.
I don't even think it has to be. I think the other pieces I realized, and maybe that's what took it even longer for me to realize, is it doesn't even always come out as rage and yelling and screaming. Either my ex-husband or the long-term relationship after him never like yelled, screamed, raised their voice in rage. It was always very even keeled, but the content of everything they just described happened. Like, right, the words they would use, it's your fault. Well, if you hadn't, and if you'd, but I think that's why it took me so long, because often I would see videos that say that and be like, well, it's not like they're yelling at me. So, you know what I mean? Or I'm not being yelled at.
It's hidden.
So. Oh yeah. My wife used to love that one. I would perceive it as yelling, and I would point it out as yelling because it was emotionally violent and it was emotionally laden with this extreme like judgment. And but it wasn't.
You must have
literally
goofed
yelling,
up somewhere.
You're right.
You must have goofed
so
up
I would
somewhere.
point it out and I'd say, please stop yelling at me. And she'd say, I'm not yelling.
Shit, man, my kids that me. They're like, Mom, you're yelling. And I'm like, I'm just asking you why your assignment's not done. But Kurt, I think you just burst my bubble, man.
Well, no. So then actually it proves a point. The content of what you're asking them is actually fine. You're their mother, you're asking about homework. Anything what Kurt is saying is the content of what we're hearing from them is still something like, you're an extremely selfish person because you didn't wake up at 6 a.m., like something ridiculous, right? So although it's being said very calmly, like, right? Like my ex, yeah, you're an extremely selfish person because you didn't ask me if I needed help with my costume.
Only, Crystal, it would only apply to you if you were doing something like underhanded with the sarcasm and tone of your voice where you were saying,
yeah,
well, you obviously.
It's not just a misinterpretation of, okay.
The content, it's passive aggression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where Crystal had some cognitive dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
You saw her behavior and said, "Is that me?" But no one's even attacking her here. See how easy it is
my own worst
to create cognitive dissonance for codependent?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we fixed it. How? By having other people reflect and clarify so that the two opposites aren't so opposite anymore. Now you sort of know the nuance of what's abusive and what's just passionate.
I feel like that comment, if you cared about me, you would X, is like whatever that is also, it's a really selfish, it's your own map that you're reverberating at that point, because you don't know what someone will do if they cared about you. You're saying what you think you would do if you cared about somebody, and then you want to receive that back, and you expect that. So it has nothing to do with if you cared about me, you would. It's in my head, I feel like the way you would show me care in this instance is you would do this, and it's like unfathomable to believe that probably somebody would do something different. That took a really long time for me to figure that out. And now if you pay attention to how many times people say that, it'll drive you crazy, because you're like, no, if that person cared about me, you don't know what they would do. So
this is so simple.
Your feelings are their fault because they're yours. Because they're yours. Because they're yours. Your feelings are their fault because they're yours. Because they're yours. Because they're yours.
That's trying to create cognitive dissonance. Because your feelings, you blame someone else. They're their fault. Because they're yours. That's what they're doing. They're blaming your behavior for triggering their feelings. And you have to fix their feelings. That's the trap. But back to virtue signaling.
This will set up a manipulative psychological trick where you plant yourself to be the opposite of that horrible something.
Which is always something virtuous.
So it could sound like, you're hateful, you're uninclusive, you're racist.
Virtue signaling! And don't worry, it doesn't matter if they're not racist. This isn't about them. This is about you.
And
This is about you. It's about the abuser. It's not about them. You're presenting that it's all about them. But virtue signaling is all about me, because I feel insignificant. So I will jump into YouTube and search through videos to find something that triggers me the most. And then I will try to attack the leader or anybody because I don't like the message of what's triggering in the video, because I'm a wuss.
Well, then you have an audience, right? You have automatic flying monkeys. I mean, just like I experienced it in my family, where my children were the automatic flying monkeys. So they got to hear this fucked up diatribe where mom was laying it out that I have these emotions and it's your fault. And the children are like, what? Yeah, you did something to mom. That was bad.
Distorted story. Then you're defending yourself against the distorted story, which is a projection from the abuser.
And the defense makes you automatically guilty anyway. If you become defensive, therefore you've lost.
Yes, because you're reacting to their insincere communication.
Children experiencing cognitive dissonance?
What's that again?
In Kurt's example, who's experiencing the cognitive dissonance?
Well, the
Kurt
kids
is.
can't. Well, I'm experiencing cognitive dissonance.
Not the kids?
The kids are not able to figure out. They don't have enough experience to piece it all together either way. All they see is some mom saying something hurt her. That's bad, and she's pointing at dad. So mom's always virtuous, dad's always virtuous, but one got hurt. They're saying it's over there. It must be over there. There's not enough to really figure out the
kids, they're having dissonance.
Yeah.
But they're taking the side of the emotional outburster, the monologuer, this person.
Yeah, and once I become defensive, then I'm the obvious aggressor.
The crazy emotional terrorist wins. Because they create a sense of urgency, and then they play victim, and in current society, we let the victim win. In old cultures, we punish the victim. No one wants to stay victim. But in now culture, if you're a victim and you get special treatment, you get advocacy, you get soothing, you get all this attention by playing victim. So the people who are emotionally manipulative.
You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't.
Then they distort the story to get you to take their side, even to get you to take a side against their father, Kurt's example, because they trap the kids.
You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't.
And why would YouTube people complain about a video about interruptions when they can skip, they can pause, they have total agency to turn off the fucking video if you don't like it? Richard Grannon had hundreds of videos that they could watch if they wanted to get a monologue, but they're pissed off because of this one's different. Let me complain. Because they have no agency. They want to play victim. They want things served to them on a plate. And who cares about them? That's me ranting. Because I had cognitive dissonance. But I'm outputting it here instead of putting it in the comment section. So then I'll get eviscerated. Because I don't know how to beat Juliana. She's like going crazy in the comment section. Let's get some more tips. Another 20 seconds.
About hurting others for your gain of a heightened degree of significance.
Self-responsibility? It's more like toxic responsibility. The world needs less self-responsibility and more safe space for people to be unself-responsible.
Start today. Victimize yourself.
Blame someone else.
Feel significant. Repeat often. Your feelings are their fault because they're yours.
This is a formula. Your feelings are their fault because they're your feelings.
That's a loop of disorder.
It is, but people believe that. They act this out. They genuinely think that their feelings are whoever they blame. That's what happens in these early narcissist abuse forms. People jump in and they just want to demonize and hate anybody and everything that triggers them. They'll just call everybody a narcissist. You remember newbies that come here? That's a narcissist. That's a narcissist. Narcissists everywhere. Anybody that triggers them is a narcissist. Where do you go from that?
It's definitely the narc's fault.
That makes it easy. Oh. So one of the problems, most of YouTube is cognitive dissonance. Most of the support groups are cognitive dissonance. This is a nice video here that I'm going to show you. And I'm going to ask if anybody can see what the cognitive dissonance is. But it'll be very hard. Or I think it's very hard to spot. Maybe you guys are super smart.
A very wise man recently told me to be like the bison. They do not run away and seek shelter from a storm like many other animals do.
Beautiful
they go
graphics.
right through it and face the hardest parts so that they can come out on the other side of it much faster. Be like a bison.
Be like
I believe
a bison.
that when we are in a time of deep transformation, It's more important than ever not to hide from things that are uncomfortable, or
Don't
not to
hide.
get stuck in old patterns or old ways of believing things just because it feels safe. But instead, to go right into that storm of emotions and fear or whatever it might be, and to face the things that we know we need to change deep inside of us, but it feels too hard or too uncomfortable. To bring it to the surface so that we can release it and be part of this transformation that we need to go through. Be like a bison. Be like a bison.
Anybody spot anything?
There's too much do this to get a result. So the distortion is coming from, hey, in order to heal, you have to do so with aggressive or energetic haste. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to release it.
There is superego. Control.
All I heard was like lean into your uncomfortableness, like they preach in DPT. So I completely missed it. That's all I got out of that. It was like a metaphor for leaning into your uncomfortableness.
It's a great metaphor. I agree on that. But there's cognitive dissonance in the delivery.
It sounds like the message is more about perseverance. Like nobody cares what you're persevering through. You're getting, beat up. You're getting hit over the head with a can. Persevere. You're getting set on fire. Persevere. It feels like the message is just telling you to persevere and not to think about exactly what's happening to you.
Yeah, it just seems really strange. Like if you're afraid of heights, jump off a building.
Exactly. Or my kids have this saying they saw on a TikTok. They're like, Ariana Grande said to knock yourself out. So I punch myself in the face every day. Like it's just like trend, but
I felt in the beginning, it was like kind of judgy.
It is judgy. Yes.
Yeah,
it's judgy. That's part of what Brenda saw.
I think it's a setup too, because the Bison is conditioned for what she mentioned before. That's not the same case with a human being. Maybe a bison can handle all.
You guys are now
a short person be tall.
Responding to cognitive dissonance because you're arguing against her story.
I think that it's all about that the dissonance in it is that's the only way to do it. They said a couple times a bunch of absolute quotes. There was absolute, you have to, you must.
She made a distorted story, but right now, more than a few of you are arguing against the story, which means you're in cognitive dissonance.
And I'm the dingbat agreeing with the story.
Which is also cognitive dissonance, because it's just a different perspective. You have a perspective, she has a perspective. But my question is spotting the cognitive dissonance in this presentation.
It's the absolutes.
Not the message. The absolutes are that's a partial cognitive dissonance. There's a bigger cognitive dissonance that everyone overlooks.
Visual cognitive dissonance?
Can you play it again?
Is it the visual you're talking about?
Partially. It's not all the visual. But Holly wants to see it again. And
I agree with that.
We'll give everyone a second chance to spot the broader cognitive dissonance. Not the details of the story, the broader picture of what's the mismatch.
I don't know. My cognitive dissonance was wondering, why am I watching this?
Because I'm setting you up to try to reverse
so I'm like,
cognitive
what the
dissonance.
Fuck? Why am I watching this shit?
Hey, well, wait, that's your cognitive dissonance.
Because he wants to build our CD muscle. It's the CD muscle he's building.
That muscle and awareness. So this is a giant trap. She's not doing this intentionally. This is just how we mainstream present stuff.
I don't know, something about her voice. Anything she would say, I would not.
That too. The voice is there. So that's a clue. So another replay. It's only a minute.
A very wise man recently told me to be like the bison. They do not run away and seek shelter from a storm like many other animals do. They go right through it and face the hardest parts so that they can come out on the other side of it much faster. Be like a bison. I believe that when we are in a time of deep transformation, it's more important than ever not to hide from things that are uncomfortable. And not to get stuck in old patterns or old ways of believing things just because it feels safe. But instead, to go right into that storm of emotions and fear or whatever it might be, and to face the things that we know we need to change deep inside of us, but it feels too hard or too uncomfortable. To bring it to the surface so that we can release it and be part of this transformation that we need to go through.
To the frickin' bison.
Be like a bison. Be like a bison.
That's attacking the story. That's not the question.
But I mean, but how can you ascribe...
Well, there's no storm in her video. It's nice and calm and pretty.
She's made...
That's better. Crystal's getting
first
close.
Part, yeah.
Crystal's getting close. Because Crystal's our smartest person.
Past the words, because this isn't just someone's writing. We're not just reading text. There's other stuff.
There's other stuff. What's the other stuff that's causing dissonance?
That she's like happy about it?
Well,
yes,
she's wearing
that's
a
good.
coat.
You're getting close, yeah. She's happy about it. The tone is very happy. The music is very pleasant, isn't it? What's the music
She's
like?
frolicking.
Listen to this music.
Looking into uncomfortableness, but not frolicking.
Yeah, she's frolicking. In the
She's
snow.
not giving us the experience of the bison.
She's frolicking. Is that a bison-like montage?
No.
No, and she doesn't look uncomfortable or facing any storm or adversity at all.
Yes. Crystal's starting to see the giant.
She's not beat up in it.
Cognitive dissonance that
She also
people
is
miss.
quoting somebody else, and then all of a sudden it's her thought. How did that work?
It's like, show us a picture of
That's
starving
referencing
children.
an expert. That's
Referencing a wise man and then having it be your own thought are two totally different things.
But
see, Eric is summarizing. Read Eric's wisdom.
Well, that's true. It's just
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, Eric. That's what that better said than me. Yeah.
Yeah, but Crystal is on Xanax and opiates.
What's wrong with Xanax?
And a traumatic brain injury.
Yes.
How about the fact that we're not
Xanax
bison?
is good shit. That's the part that drives me crazy.
That's the story. You're arguing the story.
No, that's a metaphor. The metaphor.
Yes, it's a metaphor. That's all it is.
Bison are stupid. They just stand there because they're fucking stupid.
Hurt.
They're not
You're
strong.
triggered.
They're one of the
You're
dumbest
attacking
ones.
Get out of the
a bison. Leave the bison out of it.
You should go watch Dances with Wolves again. There's a reason why they just stand there. They're the sheep
stand
of
there
the.
because they're rocks.
They're the sheep of the.
Rocks are really smart. They don't run away from fire.
If you're attacking,
He won't. A
You're
bison
rock.
won't. He just stands there like a dipshit.
if you're emotionally attacking the bison, that's your cognitive dissonance muscle is being triggered.
This is our animal science coming out. There's bovine hierarchy of intellectual superiority, and they're on the bottom. End of
You're
story.
judging the bison, but the bison are innocent metaphor.
It's a bad metaphor.
You're passing some other quiz, you guys. That's not our quiz. Focus on the quiz question.
Said like penicillin. Penicillin goes in and breaks it all up, right?
And penicillin's really smart. And penicillin doesn't, pays its bills on time.
He's the issue, and it just goes right on through it. It doesn't go off to the side.
Cognitive dissonance essentially means the bad feeling you get when your map of reality doesn't match the reality that you're faced with.
Much more sense.
You can't live with that.
Penicillin has really good credit.
So
Let's
the
go
map
back
she's
to
drawing.
Eric's answer. Or Holly, do
Lydia.
you have something to add on?
The map she's drawing doesn't match the story she's telling.
That's sort of the same message. Who else saw something similar?
I only saw an image of a really fucking...
The Neocon raised his hand, I think. Is that it?
Yeah, I saw the same thing, basically.
What did you see? Are you hating on the Bison like Kurt and Brenda, or what did you see?
No, it's basically like you know, I think the map doesn't match the territory kind of thing.
Yes, that doesn't look like
it's like saying
being a bison.
Is a great
not literally,
is a great
but
financial planner. Just do what this cat does, and you'll be able to have a house in 2 years. You know,
now that's Kurt.
That's 3 ways to 50K on Bloomberg.
Being cognitive dissonance because his emotional trigger
I think
bleeding out his words.
Like to what Eric was saying, Dave, to build on that, you asked.
Yes.
Like the music also doesn't necessarily the background sound also doesn't.
That was a huge obvious dissonance that only Crystal mentioned, but maybe Brian wants to mention.
I don't know. I like Brenda and my cognitive dissonance issue more than these random issues.
Brian's trying to share with his mic that's low.
Why the Little Prince?
How is this triggering so much that people have to attack the video? Stop talking to a projection.
You asked us to sit here and...
Exactly. You asked us to look at this fucking video about some...
What was the question that I asked?
What's wrong with this story?
Nuh-uh.
And everything is wrong with this.
That's not the question I was asking.
Re-ask the question because they're not answering your question. Try again.
So what's the cognitive dissonance in here? What's wrong with the story? Brian?
He has his hand up. I think we should let him answer.
The story implied it's not easy, but the visuals and the music implied it was easy, or gave the impression it was easier.
Mm-hmm. That's a nice, simple cognitive dissonance. Who gets that? Brian's simplification.
Easy and comfortable. But she's saying it's neither easy nor comfortable.
The word she's saying, the story, is
doesn't
uncomfortable.
match her.
But the video, the behavior she's presenting, the music, the delivery, is not matching what she's saying. Two different stories. What she's saying is harsh and difficult.
Mm-hmm.
What she's presenting with music, tone, video, pace is sugary and flowery, overly easy. Brenda's laughing about Russia.
I'm laughing at Jeff's comment. Yes, there are no bison in Russia.
I was laughing.
So hard I'm gonna vomit.
This isn't Russia. Is this Russia? This isn't Russia.
Yeah, it's Russia.
That's also attacking the bison.
I thought it was Alaska.
Being asked to believe this is Russia.
I think it's Montana. I think she's just here on a ski trip.
This is Sweden.
I thought maybe Alaska because she sounded a little Inuit in her voice.
Yeah, I thought Alaska.
Sweden, I think.
Russia.
But that's not the point if you're trying to attack the person, the message, or the story because you feel cognitive dissonance.
I think Alaska versus Russia is cognitive dissonance.
Isn't Alaska next to Russia?
I feel like I'm
right. Next door.
Culture.
Connected. They pulled up the bridge.
Do you see how hard it is to sit with cognitive dissonance? We're not even attacking anybody. It's a simple question, and you have this knee-jerk reaction to attack the bison, her frolicking, the weather,
and Sarah Palin.
Attacking random stuff because you feel cognitive dissonance, but there's no threat. There's some judgment in the message, so maybe that's the threat. She's telling you indirectly that you should be a bison and you should face your pain and blah, blah, blah. And if you take that judgmental personally to you, then you poke holes at the message. But this is just a video. It's not to you. This video is to the commenters that I'm trying to indirectly attack if they watch this video in the future. That's the audience, not you. So how's everyone doing? Their behavior is a stronger indicator of intentions. Okay, this is where I was trying to go. One big cognitive dissonance is what do you see and what do you hear? What's the story versus what's the behavior? And I would argue codependents tend to get lost in the story, not notice the behavior. Once you get lost in the story, you lose, because they're good at distorting the story and doing opposite behavior. You feel cognitive dissonance because you notice the mismatch of behavior and story, but you argue the story because the behavior is dumping emotions on you. That's the aggressive stuff that Crystal and Kurt were talking about. The aggressive, hidden emotions. That's the behavior. You sense that. You read that. You respond to that cognitive dissonance. But you attack the story. You attack the distorted story. That's the trap. That's what they're trying to do.
They don't actually want to discuss anything. They're literally there to assault you, to assault you, to assault you. They don't actually want to.
They want to assault you to get this.
It'll make your mind turn. It'll make your head spin. But with the narcissist, we're sitting there like in our heads like, yes, how powerful am I? It'll make your mind turn. It'll make your...
You attack their distorted story. They feel powerful.
I have an example, I think, that might help.
Good.
Ages ago, my wife and I were in Cancun, and we got lost or something, so we took a cab back to the resort, right? And the driver was real nice, just chatting, usual tourist stuff. And then he says, oh, I know this guy, I need to help him out. Do you mind if I give him a ride? He's going our way. And so we say, okay. So the guy hops in the front seat, and he's got this amazing story about how he and his friends came down here and they got lost, and then their bus was attacked and he got robbed and they lost all their money, and this whole sad story. And my wife was like, oh my God, this is terrible. And so when we get to the end of the towards the hotel, all of a sudden this guy has some stuff. He's trying to raise money to get back home. He has his watch out. He's like, oh, this watch, I'm just trying to get some money. If I could get $20, $25 for it or such, the cab driver goes, well, what do you think? That's a good deal. And I go, yeah, maybe you should take it. And my wife is just totally stunned, like, what is going on here? And I just pay, and we get out of the cab. She goes, oh, I get it. It was a con. We were set up. It's like, yeah. But the guy was so genuine and so nice, and everything was so, the sadness is like he should have gotten an Academy Award for it. But the whole thing was fake.
Yeah, I can pick up on the emotion of that shit. Like, just like the video, I can pick up on the emotion of it. And if I act on the emotion, then I get hooked. But if I just pay attention to the emotion and I let myself sit with that and say, yeah, something's kind of wrong here, then I just move on. Yeah.
Right. So you get caught up in the emotion of his story that he made up about being attacked and all his money taken and blah, blah, blah.
You're caught up in the story because it's highly emotional. But then you look at the context. The friend just happens to jump in, happens to have this sob story. Then right at the end, they're trying to sell this thing. You piece together the context, the behavior, then you don't fall for the story.
Yeah. Yeah, but Deef was the friend here, we got drawn in and we got sucked in to sit and watch this video. So that's what made me start arguing the shit and get lost.
Oh, that's a different attack. So
Yeah,
now instead of attacking
is,
her, you're attacking the person who brought her into your sphere.
Deef is the driver here. And Deef, sucked us along with this crazy ass video.
In the source, Kurt.
That's perfect. What Kurt is doing is this.
Your feelings are their fault because they're yours.
I'm there.
Because they're yours. Because they're yours.
Kurt's feelings are my fault. See? I gave him the lesson. He's acting it out. Perfect virtue signaling.
I'm just trying to learn. I'm just trying to,
We're not allowed to learn until part 3.
Oh yes, that's coming. 2 minutes.
I often hear accusations from narcissist borderlines, something like, "You made me feel that way."
These are your victims, Brian.
That's a accusation, or that's a story. It's half true. It's also half false. And it's also vague. What's the solution? Just because the accusation, you made me feel bad. What's the negotiation? What's the transaction? It's vague. Borderlines tend to say a subjective fix. They never tell you how to fix it. Do that. The fix is like, stop doing this, be more perfect. Blah, blah, blah. It's very vague. It's always a moving target.
My wife would always say, "Be nicer to me."
Yeah, see, like that.
Just something.
Be nicer.
Just be nicer.
What?
Like what?
To what point? How do I?
How was I not? I mean, I guess I did this one thing, but I mean, you're like the center of my world. What the fuck? Be nicer to me. Just.
That's a mind fuck.
On and ask for specificity, you get, a lot of anger and pushback, right? Okay, be nicer to you. What exactly how would you see me being nicer?
Yeah, this is the trap. This is the part where if you tell them, then they failed. Like it's the, well, if I have to ask, then you
don't love me.
Yeah.
I like what Adria's point helped me clarify though, because like when Kurt said that, I was like, well, sometimes I don't have the words or the memory to say why I think you're in general. I think you're say mean. Well, how am I mean? What did I do? But when Adria took it the other way and said, how would you like me to treat you? That's easier to answer.
Well, you should.
Because there's no, the point is to get you in a situation where you're not meeting their needs. So that's a very hard question.
But you flipped it just like Eric did. Like you flipped the cognitive dissonance and turned it off.
Turned it on to them to answer the question. But then they'll flip it back. So it go back and forth of who's trapped. So I'm supposed to somehow develop the skill, give a case study, or give some answer, but I'm having cognitive dissonance because I was surprised at Kurt's overreaction to this person. I like her videos, and people attack her so bad. I'm feeling bad for her. She's my avatar projection.
Oh, now you're shaming me. Now I'm not supposed to have attacked her. Okay, all right, Keith.
See, now Kurt's learning the skill. Good spot. That's skill development. We have to practice talking out cognitive dissonance. Brian.
No, I have a question about my own question earlier. Isn't everyone responsible for their own feelings, independent of anyone else? Like,
Not if you can dump somebody else to take care of it.
Yeah, it all depends on how much skill you have.
Because, you know, it's like,
in an ideal world, everyone takes care of their feelings, self-regulates.
Yeah, I would like to be that, but I can't say that I am.
So then we co-regulate, and the advanced people dump their emotions on other people, and the losers dump their feelings onto YouTube comments because they can't find a real person to dump their feelings onto, because they're sitting in front of their YouTube channel watching hours and hours and trying to trigger anybody. Will people hate this video? We'll see.
The problem I have with cognitive dissonance is when I didn't recognize it, then I was like, it would totally trigger me because I knew something wasn't right, but I couldn't figure out what it was, and I would get upset.
Yes.
And then I would start arguing the story, like you said, but
you
not
get
really.
lost in the story, not the behavior, not the context. The context, the environment, the bigger picture, that's closer to reality. Shortcut is the story, because you already have the story in your head. You can make sense of the story faster. But what's on your side is reality. The behavior, your behavior, their behavior, bigger context, bigger picture. Or the bigger group. So if you get other people's eyes and opinions, then you have a broader picture. But if you're isolated, going against a bunch of flying monkeys, then it does feel like you have to retreat to the story.
Yeah, but also they are really good at repeating the illusion or the story that's not correct. They'll say it over often enough that you will believe the story, and then the behavior then doesn't match up. That's always got me. Like, I am honest. Like forever. I am an honest person. I want to do the right thing. Then they don't, right?
So you have to, a counter technique is you don't fall into their story. That's part of what ISTDP does. The therapist stays neutral, or is a blank mirror. I don't know if this is going to be a good example. Oh, let's put this out here. Oh, this might trigger people. But since we already have triggering material.
We put her off to decide what does the rage do.
So there will be talk of murder in here, which I might need to take out of the video if I'll put it on YouTube. But it's so entertaining.
Oh, is this the one with when he was talking about his sister?
Yes. So Crystal, you've seen it, so you won't be as triggered. Other people haven't seen it. Maybe you'll get triggered. But this is to teach you the energy of the therapist can be your energy to help you not fall into the story. The idea is to let the other person feel their story, not you jump in with it. What do you notice the therapist? The therapist was he doing anything? Consoling, stopping, trying to control the affect?
Mm-hmm. He was doing that.
Yeah. And then he encourages it. So I'll play that to the encouragement, then I'll switch another example.
Then I submit. I submit. She's my sister. Yeah, but if you don't...
What do you see? So he's trying to stop the imagination. He's defending from feeling that feeling. And the therapist says, blocks the defense and says, let's go into the rage. That's the wrestling you do with somebody who wants to play emotional chicken. So someone wants to go,
I'm monologuing! I'm monologuing! I'm monologuing! I'm monologuing! interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent. You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent.
My head gets chopped. So someone traps you into emotionally venting. Here.
You can't interrupt me. You just
So
have
my
to let
head
me
doesn't get
emotionally vent. Me emotionally
chopped off.
vent. You can't interrupt me. You just have to let me emotionally vent. Me emotionally vent.
What do? You amplify the emotion.
Yeah.
Adria.
That's it. I was gonna say escalate it, but whatever.
Yes, you encourage the emotion. Because what's the old trap? What would codependence do? Codependence would
Try to stop it.
People please. Try to stop it. They would try to explain it. This thing.
They're gonna shoot your ass off. I'm a soldier, man. I've been
Wrong
trained for
video.
combat.
Let's switch to this one.
They're shooting! They're shooting! Somebody's shooting! Down! Get your ass down, boy! I thought you were trained for combat. Yeah, I was. But I ain't never been in it. What are these fancy medals for?
Right there.
Yeah, I was. But I ain't never been in it.
I was trained for combat, but I've never been in it.
What are these fancy medals for? Well, this one is,
I've got all these diplomas and medals. What are they for?
shorthand, and this one over here is MVP, and this is surfing.
So it starts out here, because I was surprised. Wrong video played.
Boy, they're gonna shoot your ass off. I'm a soldier, man. I've been trained for combat.
That's the confidence of a narcissist borderline. I'm trained, I'm an expert, moral high ground. So what you do is you let them lead. You escalate the emotion. They're playing emotional chicken with you. They want you to soothe. They want you to fix the distorted story. You distort it more. Or you just change a different distortion. Because if you stay in the emotion, they do this.
They're shooting! They're shooting! Somebody's shooting! Down! Get your ass down, boy!
And this is an example of this pointer, which was what I wanted to play.
It's in need of an experience, not an explanation. It's in need of an experience, not an explanation. It's in need of an experience, not an explanation. It's in need.
You're getting lost in the story, which is intentionally distorted. So you're trying to explain to them to fix this story, but that's a trap. You fight the story. You join them in the story. The purpose of that is to avoid the experience. The experience is scary, because if they see the experience, this is what happens. They don't want to do this.
They're shooting! They're shooting! Somebody's shooting! Down! Get your ass down!
Why do they not want to do that? Because they're also codependent. How are they codependent? Because
the terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others. The terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others. The terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others.
So if you stay with the emotion, stay with the behavior, then
It's in need of an experience, not an explanation. It's in need of an.
You give them an experience. And what you do, if you want to help yourself and other people, using highest TDP.
We ask, inquire, and probe for feelings while blocking defenses and monitoring anxiety. We ask, inquire, and probe for feelings while blocking defenses and monitoring anxiety. We ask.
So you can ask questions, guide it to the experience, guide it to the feeling, not get lost in the story. Do that with them, but do that with yourself too. That's the way out.
What if they get into the feeling, but they still stay in the story, and they cycle through story, feeling, story, feeling, story, feeling, feeling, story? I mean, back and forth.
What's wrong with that? What's the goal?
Okay,
What's the
so you
problem?
just need to hear them tell the story until they're done telling the story, because all the details need to come out?
What I would do, if they're telling the story, I would look for weaknesses so I could punish them later. But if you just want to enjoy the dance, you can do that.
Yeah, I don't enjoy the dance. That's why I'm trying to...
What's your goal? What do you want to do? What's the agenda? Do you have an
get
agenda?
The person. Yeah.
To get the person.
Well, I think the person just isn't learning. I think the person isn't learning that her own behavior is causing the trauma now.
Does
because
she
won't
have
pull herself out of it.
Ownership?
She doesn't take any ownership.
Then that's what
She keeps blaming it. The story stays
until she has
on the
ownership.
Perpetrator.
You can't help her.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Because if she doesn't have ownership, she's blaming someone else. Blaming someone else means you have to change the other person. She's stuck in this trap.
Your feelings are their fault because they're yours. Because they're yours. Because they're yours.
If she's in this trap, she just wants someone to validate the other person's to blame.
Yes.
You can play that
and
game.
I won't do it anymore.
And
I
it'll
won't do it
just be a
anymore.
circle and loop. Because you can't change the person she's blaming. The person she's blaming isn't in the conversation.
Right.
So then you're looping.
Well,
so you can,
isn't there to defend. Yeah.
And so I would let them loop, escalate the emotion, find a wound, so I can make fun of it later. But I'm evil. People want to punch me in the comment section.
How do you escalate the emotion when they're already like that's what I mean by this.
I would laugh
cycling.
at it.
It's like
I would ridicule it. I'd make it a parody.
Okay. Yeah, so she can see how she has control over it.
No, I'm just messing with her. Until she has ownership, there's no bridge.
I see.
In ISTDP, they would just posture back and forth. The therapist would just reflect back neutrally and just keep pointing out the defense. So they would try to point out the defense, throw it back at the patient, keep throwing it back at the patient, until the patient is willing to work with the therapist and stop projecting.
So what's the defense? The defense is that they're not... What's the defense? If they keep that they're blaming someone?
Distorted story. Externalization. Denial. Okay, here. This is 2 minutes.
I basically said at the end, she's causing it. She's making it happen.
No, see, you're arguing. See, right there, you're in the story.
Yeah.
The vignette started with the therapist asking, "What are you feeling toward him for hitting you in the face this week?" Patient, "We talked about it, and he said he's sorry, and he won't do it again." She listens to what he says, but ignores what he did. So I point out the defense of denial through words. Therapist, "You pay attention to his words rather than his deeds."
That's all he's reflecting back. He's not arguing saying you're stupid. He's saying you're paying attention more to the words than to the action. It's very neutral. It's very non-positional. Just an observation.
Patient, "But he said he wouldn't do it again." Her response tells us that she's still listening to what he says, but ignores what he did. So I point out the defense again. Therapist, "That is what he said. Do you notice you pay attention to what he said, but not what he did?"
So that's repeating the same thing. The story she's blaming, or the story here, she says, he said he stopped. He said he's not going to do it again. I want to believe what he said. I want to believe the story. I don't want to believe or think about the behavior. That's the cognitive dissonance that she's feeling. But what he's doing, he's not fighting the opposite of the story. All he's saying is, you're consciously choosing to believe what he says over what he does. And he repeats that 2 times so far.
Patient, but he said he was sorry. Again, she repeats the defense of denial through words. So again, I point out the defense. Therapist, but do you notice you pay attention to what he says and ignore what he does? Patient, my mom says that too.
This is another defense. My mom says this stuff like you. So how's he respond to that?
Now she sees it, but she projects this awareness upon her mother, right? It's what my mom says that. My mom is aware of this.
So I see it, but I'm saying my mom sees it. I don't have to own it.
Instead of, I see that too. So I need to block her projection onto the mother and ask if she can see her denial. So I block her projection by saying, what's your opinion?
That's a redirect. You're asking a question right here, like this.
We ask, inquire, and probe for feelings while blocking defenses and monitoring anxiety. We ask.
It's very boring, but it's very simple.
Then I ask, do you notice you believe his words and try not to believe his fists?
That's escalation. But it's not emotional charge. No judgment. Oh, you believe his words over his fists. Ooh, 640. So that's going to the feeling. So it's a gradual escalation. You believe his words over his deeds. Now he's saying you believe his words over his fist. In addition to asking, what do you think versus what your mom thinks?
Patient. I hadn't thought of it that way. Now she begins to see the defense. So to summarize, when a patient uses denial through words, remind the patient of the difference between what someone says and does. She pays attention to his promises, but not to his delivery. Once the patient can see the price of her denial, she can face the reality of what...
That's the sell. Right here, you have to sell this.
Once the patient can see the price of her denial, she can face the reality of...
You sell them that if they keep their defense, they're punishing themselves. The price of hiding from reality means your defense is self-punishing. You're hiding from reality, which continues the pattern over and over and over again. You reflect the spotlight back on the person to recognize that, and they have to make the choice to do something different.
Of what her boyfriend does. Then she can face the feelings that reality triggers.
But if you argue the story, her story is wrong, she needs to be angry about being punished, then she resists you and feels empowered. Because she's fighting your story. She gets a secondary gain as a victim. And then she can also say, you tell me how to fix it. And then dump the responsibility on you as the police, as the solution person. And then if she can't do it, she'll go back to you and say, that didn't work, I wasn't able to do it, give me another fix. And it goes nowhere. How did I lose music? Holly, did that make any... Was that useful?
Yes, yes.
What did you get from it?
Well, I'm getting caught up in the story because...
Yes.
You know, I'm getting caught up in the story.
You're
And
triggered by your cognitive dissonance. You're blaming them, but it's your cognitive dissonance and your triggers that's forcing you to invade their story. That's the trap. That's the trauma. We get lost in other people's stories. That's codependence. We rescue other people's stories because we don't want to deal with our triggers. our codependence. It's too terrifying. We need someone to hold space, which is what I'm trying to do in this group, is create an experiential, safe space. Oh, fuck. An experiential, safe enough space, a courageous space where you can be triggered and be exposed to this stuff, and it's okay. There's no police hammer, there's no judgment, there's no giant violence. You can talk it out, make sense of your cognitive dissonance, so that trigger gets unwound some. But if you go to a support group where you start breaking down, somebody jumps in and soothes you, fixes your story, or overwrites your story, that just continues the pattern for 10 more years. Oh! I didn't give enough examples. Oh, here's an example.
I have a question. So what would be the ideal way, say for example, the video you put up about the Bison thing or whatever, what would be the actual response to that? Like, how can I detach from the story and just see it as a video and not, whatever is being discussed on there, like just kind of come from a mindset of, well, I guess there's a message here and it's not necessarily a message I agree with. And instead of getting like overly absorbed into it.
Did you get absorbed in
like the way?
Did you get absorbed into it like Kurt did? And Neocon? Did you get absorbed? How did you get absorbed?
Yeah. I mean, it was
your hook?
Basically a few people were also acknowledging where it's like, okay, you're telling this story about perseverance, but it's not, like just started having like.
I'm asking you,
arguments in my head.
Where were you hooked? Right now, you're describing other people's stories, which is a defense.
Oh no!
So I'm reverting back to you. Where did you get triggered?
The part where when she's running off, like it just that part, like the.
What did you feel?
Nice. I felt a little confused, because I'm like, okay, what story are you telling here, or where's this going?
Okay, when you got confused, what came up in your system?
I think I resented the video right away.
Oh, resentment. So some anger came up. What was the anger about? Did you feel it was false? What was the anger around?
Yeah, I felt like it was false.
Okay. So you sensed deception, and then you had some anger. And then what did you want to do?
I guess that's why I started, I feel like I have to critique this video to make myself feel better.
So you had some ideas
I had to make sense.
Attack the video. So what kind of thoughts did you have to attack? Were you attacking the Bison? Were you attacking Russia versus Alaska that Jeff was doing? Where were you attacking?
Yeah, the Bison part, where it's like, for example, like using maybe this, I know it's a metaphor, but I went, I completely missed the whole point of the video and just went like,
keyed in on the Bison.
Yeah.
What about the Bison?
That they can withstand, nature and stuff like that.
Oh, you keyed in on the first part, that Bisons can handle storms.
Right.
So now we're getting away from the feeling, but I wanted to explore it because it's free. So now we go back to the feeling. You're getting angry because you felt deception. And then your brain had a defense mechanism to try to attack the messenger. Your way of attacking the messenger is attacking the start of the story, where the premise of the wise person saying that Bison go through storms. We're losing Linda. The secret's coming out. You're going to miss out everything.
Can't help it. I have things to see.
You have such an exciting life. Okay, so you started attacking the story. You started attacking the premise. That's very clever. You usually start with the core. So that's good instincts. In Neocon, you have good instincts. You attack the premise of the message. But you did it somewhat unconsciously.
Right.
Your unconscious behavior of it, that's your trigger. That's your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So you were asking earlier, what do I do about this?
Yes.
So what we've done is I've pointed out by talking out with you is what you fell into.
Your feelings are their fault because they're yours. Because they're yours. Because they're yours.
Do you see how you did that?
Yeah. Yeah.
You felt deception, triggered anger and resentment, probably from childhood when you felt deception. You wanted to share anger and resentment, but you couldn't, so you stuffed it down.
Right. Right.
And created stories. So now the same pattern continues. You watch a video, triggers resentment, triggers anger. So now you blame the source of the resentment,
right,
the video, the bison, and then you argue about the bison. But that's projection. The bison doesn't care. The wise man isn't hearing you. She isn't hearing you. I'm hearing you, so I feel bad for her. But I was more upset over Kurt. But do you see what's happening?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And do you see what we did?
Mm-hmm.
What we did was, instead of just...
It's in need of an experience, not an explanation. It's in need of an experience, not an explanation.
I gave you the experience first. Then I specifically tried to talk out your feelings, because you wanted to go to stories. So I wanted to get your attention on the experience. Then, understanding and explanation. But if I skip the experience part...
It's in need of an experience, not an explanation. It's in need of an...
I just told you what you did wrong. Without the experience. That's what you get from YouTube videos. That's what you get at support groups. That's what you got out of your therapist. Was it 4 years? 5 years? They give you the explanation too fast. Because they are codependent. Therapists have
the terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others.
So if you're going to share your resentment and anger, therapists would quash that. Because they're wimps, wusses. They're losers. I'll edit that out of the video. Maybe. Any other summaries and takeaways? I have a list of tons of videos I didn't even get to. This is the downside of preparing, because Kurt criticized me last week for not having the preparation. So I got all this preparation, and I didn't use like 90% of it. So I feel bad. Look at all this material wasted.
Can we see another one?
We can after
I feel like you're teasing us.
after I'm summarizing for today. I can still use it for part 2 or next week. But that's also me sharing my feeling to give you more perspective of my role, of what I'm trying to do behind the scenes, which the YouTube audience doesn't see. All the moving pieces, what I'm trying to monitor. Like this. All these screens to keep up with, in addition to trying to track what you guys are saying. And I'm standing up, so I have to stand up and track all this stuff, and monitor, try to keep up with everything. Then people will shit talk my stutter or some lilt or my tone or microphone or all this stuff. Because they just want a virtue signal. Because that's what social media is. People who are spectators who aren't doing anything. Like to shit talk people. So this is sort of intro to cognitive dissonance. I have a video that I made yesterday that's on YouTube that explains a broader 11-minute overview of how cognitive dissonance can work. And I'll try to simplify counter tactic that I didn't get to today.